Hi Rupi, thank you so much for meeting with us. We are big fans of your writing, and there are so many fans of yours out there who've been reaching out to us through our social media, and they've been asking us so many questions that they want to ask you. So we've picked out a few and we're going to ask them to you, and your thoughts we'd love to hear. So the first of it is, it's actually coming from the fact that a lot of crossword readers look up to you and they would love to do something similar. So there's a question from Siddharth Aarti on Twitter who's asking, how did you become an author, and what can you tell the youngster who wants to be an author like you?
I would say that I really, first of all, I don't know how I became an author. It was it was a journey, really. And then at the end of it, I somehow was published. And so I would say that there isn't really any one way to do it. And that's a wonderful thing about the world we live in today, is that we can take paths less traveled by, or we can just create our own paths. And that's sort of what I did. I was writing and performing poetry for a very long time, and sort of when I put my work online, I was performing for about 4 or 5 years, and then after that I was like, okay, let me share with a wider audience. I put my work online and began to build a readership, and then it was actually when those readers asked me where they could purchase my book that I got the idea that, okay, maybe I should put one together then. And so that's what I did, and then that's how the whole author thing happened. So I guess the advice I would give is, whatever it is that you love, practice it every day and really hone your craft and let things happen organically and naturally.
Thank you so much. So while we are on the subject of writing, there's a question from Isha Thakkar on Instagram, and I think that it's something that a lot of writers might grapple with. So she says, how do you get yourself out of the loop of constantly feeling the need to make changes in your writing, especially when your poetry is based on the feelings that you felt in that moment? In short, how to make a product that you're completely satisfied with when you might be in a turmoil of emotions around it?
That's a difficult question. So usually, I got asked this question a couple days ago, do you write, like let's just pick a topic, heartbreak. And somebody asked me, do you write about that topic right when you're in the middle of it or afterward? And so I'm the type of writer who uses writing as a tool to reflect afterward, because it's true. When you're in the middle of it, I think it's really important to write for therapeutic and cathartic reasons. And I also think it's important to listen to that voice that says, okay, edit this, revise this, change this, make it better, because my personal philosophy is that when I read a poem and the poem that I wrote sort of punches me in the stomach and makes my stomach turn, that's how I know that I'm done the poem. And I think nobody really ever feels like this is perfect and this is complete. You know, I still read my books and I'll be in the middle of a performance on stage and I'm like editing in my mind. And I'm like, oh, like I wish they gave me more time. I would take this out, I would take that out. But if your work is emotionally there, I think it's done. But I'm the same way. So I'm always editing, and I think that's important. I think it's important in today's day, especially when so much is being filtered out into the world, and there's so many books being published. I think it's important to push ourselves to create our best work.
Yes, thank you. That was very nicely put. Another question. This is coming towards poetry. So this is from Faye47D Cruz on Instagram, who says, poetry has been a way for people to channel their feelings. So does writing help you deal with your feelings about certain issues? We answered this. Does it calm a rage? What would you want to tell young poets in India who are starting to express themselves through these forms of micro-poetry?
I think it's wonderful. I think that anytime young people are using any form of art to express themselves, it's an amazing thing. It builds movements, it builds revolutions, and so that makes me really happy, especially, for me to come to India and to see that the spoken word scene is like blowing up completely and poetry is blowing up. That makes me so excited. So, I mean, I have no advice other than just keep at it.
Thank you. Next question is from Kinjal Parik98 on Twitter. She asks, why does Rupi Kaur completely disregard capitalization in her writing, like capital letters? So where does that come from?
So it comes from two places. since I started to write, I just never really used capitals, and it wasn't really an intentional, it was a very natural, organic decision. And it also comes from, I guess, the visual aspect of it is the first thing. How things look visually and how those things make you feel visually is really important to me. That's why a lot of work goes into, I think, how I draw and where I place certain things and the sort of symmetry of it all. I think that brings a sort of calmness to the reader. So I really do think about that reader usability sort of and that reader experience. And second of all, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2013, I was really struggling with the fact that I was writing about being an immigrant and I was writing about my family's experiences and I was using English to do that when really I'm the first generation of my family who actually knows English the best. And so I was kind of struggling with the fact that, you know, do I want to use English to tell these stories that have nothing to do with this language at all? And so then, you know, I was feeling really passionate about this whole thing, and then I was like, screw it, I'm going to start writing poetry in Punjabi, which is my language. And I tried for a couple of weeks, and actually months, and out of that came some really bad poems. And so then I was like, okay, this is not going to work. And maybe it'll work in the future if I go live in Punjab and really learn the full breadth of the language. But then I asked myself, are there characteristics of the language then that I can bring in? And that's when I realized, like, oh yeah, there are. Like, there's the fact that there is no case distinction. And there's the fact that the only punctuation we use is a period. And so then I thought that works perfectly because I'm also the product of East and West colliding. And so then you have these two languages also becoming one almost.
That's an amazing subversion to make.
Thank you.
Social media has been a key channel for you in reaching out to so many readers. And I think you've given them an unprecedented access for a dialogue with you. But that's usually a double-edged sword. So there's a question that Instagram user Hundreds of Fictional Words had for you. How do you deal with negative criticism?
It's hard. I mean, I would be lying if I said that it's fine and it's easy, and I think that I've been dealing with it for quite some time now, and you sort of naturally just begin to, you know, first of all, grow thicker skin, and then second, I think you slowly begin to realize that none of the negativity is actually about you. You know, it actually has nothing to do with the heart of your work. And I think the sooner you realize that, the easier it is to create that sort of safe space around you and just focus on what's important, which is the work. Because I think art is something it's like somebody trying to come and criticize your soul, you know? And like art is like love, it's like faith, it's all of these things that are so natural. And so you wouldn't let, you know, a crowd of haters infiltrate that. So why would you let them do that to your art? And so that's one thing. And I think if you realize that and you see that, and I did, because I realized when people were criticizing me for one thing, I would go and try to change that, but then they would just find something else, and they would just find something else. And if we fall into that cycle, then what are we going to be left with? Which is nothing. So just love yourself and believe in yourself.
Thank you, that's great, because people feel especially vulnerable putting their writings out
So, I think actually social media brings like a whole different world of hate that people have never experienced before. Because before, when public shaming happened in your town square, the only people that saw it were the people in the small town. There was no email, there's no internet, and now public shaming is happening in front of the entire planet, and that's so difficult, and we haven't really built the system and really talked about how that impacts people, and it really impacts people in a really negative way, whether they're giant celebrities or just like somebody who decided, you know, I started writing and I'm going to share my work and just start building this audience starting today. So it's definitely tough.
Thank you. Hundreds of Fictional Words had another question for you. Again, very pertinent to India. She says your poetry deals with topics which we don't generally talk about, especially in India. nobody wants to deal with conversations regarding trauma and abuse. According to you, is there a way to change this?
I think we're changing it, right? Like the only way to change it, it's like a domino effect. Like one person does it, and then two people feel like, oh hey, I can do that too, and then it just ripples, right? It's a ripple effect, and we're seeing that now. And I see that when I'm performing, and then I'm doing a book signing afterwards, and all of these different people are like telling me their stories and are like, oh, I also wrote a poem about this, and then I went and I performed it in this city in India, and I did this over here. Or, you know, I'm in front of an entire crowd, and then there's people shouting out, hey, can you perform Home? And Home is a poem about, you know, sexual violence and rape. And then you have another woman over there, and she's like, okay, can you perform How We Make Up? And this poem is like about loving your body and being very sensual, and it's quite like erotic. And so these are things that I thought I could never really discuss, and that audiences wouldn't want to hear. So my interactions with them have shown me that things are really, really shifting.
Yeah. You know, just further to that, we are in the month of March, and
Yes.
tomorrow is Women's Day,
Yeah.
8th March. In Crossword itself, this is a time for us to really reflect and celebrate on women's writing. And is there any writing that inspires you, coming from women, or the women that you love in the world of literature, fiction, poetry, anything?
Yes, so many women. I really enjoy reading. So Sharon Olds is a poet whom I love very much, and her poetry around feminism is absolutely incredible. And I always read it when I'm like, trying to look for some inspiration and really strength to write really raw and really boldly. Jhumpa Lahiri is one. I don't know if you've ever read Joan Didion, but she's also amazing. And some
Couching to Bethlehem as well. I've read a lot of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I read, and it's a really difficult read, The Year of Magical Thinking.
Yes, it is.
And it's like, after I read that, I'm like, oh my god. I was like planning to write fiction, and I was like, I was planning to write some sort of like memoir, fiction, non-fiction, or short. And I'm like, no, I refuse. Like, she did it. Like, she went and she just nailed it, and no one else needs to touch it. I thought that book was absolutely incredible. And there are so many more.
Thank you so much. There's a question from a writer's fate on Instagram. Very existential question from a writer's fate. But what is the one thing that drives you?
My desire to create. It's like how breathing is necessary to survive. I think I've used creativity as a form of expression from the time that I was 5 years old. And it's this drive to just make things that makes me keep on going. And it's so difficult, like right now we're in the middle of tour. So I hadn't really created anything, and I'm like having that moment where I'm like, oh my god, everybody leave, just get me a journal, get me some paints, get me some giant paper. And like that's therapeutic, and that's when I feel closest to myself. Yeah.
That's amazing, thank you. So now that you've performed a few shows in India, you just told us how things are definitely shifting. How do you find the audience here to be different than, let's say, Canada or someplace else you perform?
That's interesting. Let's see. I'm biased. I'm biased because I think it's the first time I've performed in a place where literally everyone is the same color of me, or some sort of shade, a couple shades off even. And that is unreal. I think, like, I can't explain the feeling because I've grown up in Canada where I'm the minority everywhere. And so to perform in a place where you know how to spell everyone's name, everybody pronounces your name right, and you have, like, it's like being connected at a different level, especially with young women, that's amazing. So I've never felt more connected to an audience ever before. So I don't know, it's really, 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 really incredible. I was just telling my friends the other day, they were like, how's tour going? I'm like, the audiences are incredible, because I think when I'm in the West and I'm performing these pieces, like, we understand one another, but I mean, we're also The West is like all these different people from all over the world coming and living in this place, right? And this is like generations of generations. And so I'm like, I feel like I don't have to fully explain, like in the West I have to be like, okay, this is a poem about feminism, but really like me as an Indian woman who grew up in a house where, you know, we weren't allowed to, we really didn't, I felt like I didn't own my body because there were conversations like, oh, you know, you're living in our house now and then you're gonna be your husband's property and blah, 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 blah. Like I would tell my mom, oh, Mom, can I get a tattoo? No, but when you get married, you can ask your husband. You know, like that's a unique experience that we have. And so I get to come here, I get to perform pieces on female infanticide, I get to perform pieces on motherhood and all of these things that I think hit so much deeper, and there's these deeper layers of understanding. And that's really, really a gift that India's given me. So that's how I think they're different. Yeah.
So just on a final note, and completely extension from what you're saying, you're inspiring a lot of women, especially Indian women, and it is Women's Day tomorrow.
Yes.
Is there a message you have for young Indian women for this occasion? Like, they could be from any background. Any thoughts for them?
For sure. I mean, I think you have the power to do anything and achieve everything. That thing is already in you. So often we're convinced that we're not beautiful enough, we're not smart enough, we don't have this and we don't have that, and we're just not enough. And trust me, the universe made you, which means that you are enough. And it's because one day I believed that, regardless of how I felt and how I was thinking, that I'm here today. And so you are beautiful enough, and you are intelligent enough, and you are everything. And you have to wake up in the morning, tell yourself that in the mirror. For years I had to literally fake it, like I'd be crying and I'd be like, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're enough. And then eventually, you know, it's like positive reinforcement and you believe it and go out there and achieve your dreams.
Thank you so much. This was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.